Okay, right, everybody. One thing that's come up from a meeting this morning is that there appears to be an increase in incidents where brethren are becoming depressed because of the current situation. Now, obviously, that is something that we treat very seriously indeed. I'm not sure of the level of awareness of the help that is available across the province and indeed nationally through the MCF. You should all have that. I'll try to hold it to my camera the best I can, and it's headlining advice, counselling and other support. Now, just as a quick straw poll, can you put your hands up if you're aware of this? One. Well, can you reduce me, Andrew, please?
Yes, you need to do it yourself. Click gallery view.
Yeah, I'm got full screen at the moment. So if you know of any brethren at all who come to your attention that you feel might need help in any sense of the word, please do not hesitate to get in touch with your lodge almoner, your group almoner, or straight away to the MCF. The details are there. If you'd received your Masonic yearbook through the post, which some secretaries will have done today, then I think it's on page 379, I think it starts, or 396, something like that. It's at the back of what to do and where to go. I spoke to the PGM this morning, he was in the same meeting, and we've highlighted this as a matter of urgency. There have been recent incidents in the province where people do need counselling of sort. So it's there, make use of it, look after yourselves and look after everybody else as well at the same time. Thanks, Andrew. If anybody wants to ask me any questions at all, please feel free, contact me confidentially. If you'd like, my details are there. Andrew will share them. But it is important, I cannot stress enough just how important this is, that we're there for each other. Could you minimize me, Andrew?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I was just giving Stewart a ring, and he's not answering at the moment. So hopefully, he's on his way.
So, did anybody want to ask any questions about it at all?
Neil's got his hand up. Just bear with me.
Neil,
he's just unmuting.
Hello,
Neil.
yes. I was interested in hearing what you just said. Then in Lodge of Standing Vicar staff, our secretary Peter sent us all out a list with phone numbers, and we were all to ring the following person up in order to check on everybody. I don't know whether other lodges do that. I seem to remember another lodge I was in did that as well, and I think that's a very good idea, so that we all keep in contact, because it's losing contact that causes the problem, isn't it?
It is. You're quite right. The number, if you want to just write this down, everybody, the number to call if you are in need of any help or you know somebody is 0800 035 6090. I'll say it again, 0800 035 6090. But it is important that we get on top of this and we offer the support right across the province where we feel that it's needed. Anybody else anything that they'd like to add? And just to, as most of you, or some of you will know, that I'm a prostate cancer survivor. That's one terminology. And I've often said that if anybody does find themselves in that position, by all means, give me a ring if you want to chat about it. I've been through it. I've had the operation and the various treatment, and thankfully, I'm still negative on the PSA. If you want to have a chat with me about it, I won't tell anybody else, but please do so. I'm always here for a chat about it.
Just whilst we're here and talking about this kind of thing, I'll just show you the MCF website, and here there are resources in here, the resources for almoners, for members, for charity stewards, and they're all in here. So there's fact sheets and all kinds of things in here, leaflets, kind of point-by-point job description for almoners, social isolation toolkit. All of these things are on the MCF website. It's just mcf.org.uk. A really good site. This is where the fact sheets, which are in the yearbook, have been picked up from. So there's a whole range of different resources here. Like I said, for including fact sheets and things like that, along these dealing with addictions and you name it, it's in here. So there's lots of information within there. So well worth having a look at that. Not just if you're an almoner, but if you are looking at anything, if you're not feeling particularly great yourself, it's a good place to go as well. And it points you to various different charities as well from outside of that. So well worth having a look at the MCF website if there's anything that is causing you problems. So thank you for that, Phil. I'll remind people at the end of the session.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Provincial Office webinar. I hope you're all safe and well. My name's Andrew Rydell, and I'm the Provincial Deputy Grand Secretary. So following on from last week's webinar, with the Provincial Grand Master and his reiteration that just because Masonic meetings are suspended doesn't mean that we shouldn't be communicating and engaging with our members. We've had Stewart Cranage has had a few requests, and so he's here to go over some of his ideas and resources in a little more detail. So good afternoon, Stewart. How are you? And I'll let you get on with things.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Shall we kick off? Are we all seeing? Yeah. Right. The reason that I asked Andrew for this time slot, on the last provincial meeting, I think there were 210 people that joined that Zoom meeting. And over the following 6 days, I received over 230 emails after I'd posted my contact info on from brethren saying, I'd like to know more about lodge planning. I'd like to know more about the podcasts. And obviously, I haven't had time to personally respond to all those emails. So if you are one of the brethren who has sent me an email asking about lodge planning or asking about the podcast and I haven't got back to you, my apologies. But I thought this is a way that I can address quite a few people and that you can take the information away. And I wanted to talk about two key things, really. One, if you like, is around recruitment. And I guess the question can be, why are we even thinking about recruitment in the middle of a global pandemic? And I'll come to that in a minute. And the other was to talk about the podcast initiative, because it's a way of keeping people engaged. And I wanted to set that in the context of the new provincial strategy called Runway. And Runway is a project. It's led by Phil Gunning, our Deputy Provincial Grand Master, who is responsible to our Provincial Grand Master. And each Assistant Provincial Grand Master has been tasked to liaise with Group Chairman to understand the intention of those lodges for which they have their responsibility. Once the individual lodges have understood what the new strategy is about, they are perfectly free to opt for the strategy or to opt out should they wish to just continue as they are. So this is not enforced on you. It's recommended, and hopefully as I go through some of the stuff and you can see what it might be able to offer for you, that it might be something that I'd like you to take back and discuss with your lodges. And the whole objective of the strategy is that province will maximise marketing, social media, involvement in local community and the local press. And it's targeted at 3 tiers, aged 18 to 30, up to 50 and over 50. And the members' pathway is considered an integral part of that strategy. And before I go any further, brethren, just consider this. From the 1700s, look at the numbers of Freemasons, peaked in the 60s and 70s, currently in free fall because of COVID. I'd love to be able to give you an up-to-date graph on there, but we won't know for a while yet quite how low that graph is going to go. On the other hand, look at the number of, and this is males aged over 21, and I know now we can recruit people aged 18 plus, but our market is ever expanding and our market share is ever plummeting. So the simple question is, who wants to see a change? Who wants to do something about it? Well, I certainly do. And that's why I volunteered myself to get involved in this project. Let's take a quick look at our province. We've got 332 lodges, so it represents just over 7,600 brethren, a membership of 9,200 because some brethren are a member of more than one lodge. And when you look at our problem, how are we going to survive COVID and how are we going to come out the other side? 113 of those lodges have a membership of less than 20 brethren. And the average age is 67. And it's easy to immediately think that that's our problem and that's where we should look at. But the reality is that at the end of this year, so by 31st of December, 128 treasurers in our province will be sending an email out to their lodge members to say, oi, you owe me £200 odd for your subscriptions for next year. And I think we're a bit naive if we don't realise that there are going to be quite a few that are going to be challenging what have we got for our money since March, because for a lot of lodges, that's the last time they met. And why would I want to renew my subscriptions? So part of what I'm going to talk about is twofold. One is that we need to start thinking and working together now about building a pipeline of potential members. And it's true, if we got a load of people knocking at our door tomorrow, we couldn't bring them in, we couldn't initiate them, but we need to start that work now. And to summarize, what is the Runway Project? Well, basically, it's a series of web-based forms that will look at inquiry management, tracking those events, managing the time, making sure that the activities are happening, and equally as important, following up on the closure. Did we actually result in a Form P, or why did that guy not join us? Or maybe even refer him to a different province. But, you know, making sure that just because we as a province don't get somebody, that it's been handled correctly. Now you see the timeframes there. This project is already underway. And I think the key date there is that by the end of April, full implementation of Pathway and the social media launch. So the first question that a lot of people ask of me is, why the hell are we looking at a recruitment drive and trying to bring people into Freemasonry in the middle of a global pandemic? Hopefully by April, we'll get some kind of sanity back. We hope and pray. But there's a lot of work needs to be done between now and April to get those people interested, to get the hooks out there, to try and capture them in, to generate the interest. Now, I said that Pathway, and Pathway's been around for quite a while. And to be honest, in its old form, Pathway was considered patronising, very bureaucratic, a huge document of things that people already did and already know. And I think that's true. But Pathway consists effectively of 11 steps that range from lodge planning all the way through interviewing to initiating them, hopefully introducing them to Royal Arch, making sure that we develop and retain those people, and for those brethren that we've lost, retrieve them. And it breaks down into 4 key stages. And one of the major criticisms of Pathway is it's a big, big document, and it's not until you endure, and most people haven't endured to the last page, that you realize that it is a process. So those 4 key stages, my plan for the province, my intention is, why can't we take those 11 steps and structure them into 4 key stages? And then we can do a target audience. It's about attracting people, retaining people, developing people, and retrieving those that we've lost. And if we structure those 11 steps into 4 key stages, we've got a target audience. Attraction, that's Neil Ward, Provincial Membership Officer. Retention and development, that's me, Provincial Mentor. And retrieval, jury's out a little bit. Obviously, the Almoner has a big role to play. We all have a big role to play in retrieval. But if we can structure Pathway in a way that we hit our target audience, instead of hitting them with a big document that covers everything. So that's the way I'd like to try and position it within the province. Now, when I mentioned before that there were 210 people on last month's Zoom meeting, and I would say I was naive enough, I volunteered myself to put my email address and contact details on. I got 240 emails in 6 days asking about lodge planning and asking about retaining people and how can we keep people interested. So I'm going to focus on lodge planning and retaining people, and specifically the podcast initiative. And I think the whole mention of a lodge plan is going to send people ill in lodges, because the minute you mention a plan, it conjures up this idea, like we're seeing here, of a whiteboard with all sorts of complicated things that we've got to consider, maybe a huge document that the lodge is being asked to do. And the reality is, it ain't that complex whiteboard at all. It really doesn't have to be complicated. It's something for the whole lodge to discuss. And although I've got the bullet points here for a committee meeting, it must be the whole lodge involved. Once you've taken a bit of time to create it, it's easy to update. It will identify problems before they occur. It will make sure that people don't get overlooked. And one of the key reasons we lose people is we either promote them through the offices too fast, or we promote them too slow, or we simply overlook them. So what are we talking about with a succession plan? Let's take the simple bit first. Let's look at the next 5 years. And there are a number of people in offices who are probably quite prepared to carry on in that role for the next 5 years. But document it and make sure they are. So here we've picked out, for example, the DC, the chaplain, the treasurer, the secretary. The guys that accept those roles generally accept that they're going to be doing that probably for the next 5 years, if not more. There's half of your lodge succession plan done. Where we need to pay the attention to is the progressive officers. So if we take this example here, we've got Brian, who is currently a steward, and we've done this plan, and Brian can look at this and he can see that in 2025, he's expected to be a junior warden. Let's take Duncan as an example, 2024. According to this simple plan, which all it is moving everybody up one step into the next year, Duncan is going to be Worshipful Master in 2024. Now, Duncan might see this and say, my daughter's getting married in 2024. I've got my family coming over from Australia in 2024. I can't be master in that year. But by the fact that we've committed it to paper and shared it with everybody, everybody knows where they are likely to be, circumstances continuing, and it sounds the alarm bells. It sounds the alarm bells that we can do something about it. It also makes sure that people who feel under promoted or over promoted can raise the alarm. So let's look at this here. We've got Cranage, who is currently master. And it's such a simple activity, but look at those areas highlighted in red. That is a problem area for the lodge. We know that we have got a problem with senior deacon, for example, in 2025, and we can see that the problem is escalating as we get lower down in the acting office ranks. And this would probably take a good secretary 5 minutes, secretary and a DC, to get their heads together and just naturally move everybody up 1 year, share it with the entire lodge and get their feedback. Get the alarm bells sounding now, rather than waiting the day before the installation when somebody says, you've appointed me such and such a rank, I don't want to be there. We've also got to bear in mind that on that plan, we had Jim and John as stewards. Now, some people join Freemasonry and they don't ever want to get involved in ritual. They don't ever want to go on the ladder. They like the social side. But let's make sure that when we put them on our plan for the next 5 years, that is genuinely what they want. Are we just not involving them? So therefore, they're not putting their hand up to volunteer. But again, by putting it on a piece of paper and sharing it across the whole lodge, everybody, and the important thing is everybody gets a chance to feed back their comments. Now, I think you'll all agree that will not take a lot of time to do, and that will give your lodge a plan of moving forward. The other point, I'm in 2 lodges in Ormskirk and Bootle Group. One of those lodges, unfortunately, is just about to dip below double-figure membership. And one of the things that we are heavily reliant on is another one of my other lodges inviting the guys along and saying, we're going to give you a free meal, but we need you to be Tyler, or we need you to be inner guard, or we need you to be junior deacon. So for those lodges that are low in numbers, but don't want to consider amalgamation or surrendering their warrant or whatever, this is a suggestion of a way forward. And the real benefits that I've seen in this is that once you get more intimately involved with other lodges, when you do a social, it becomes a joint social because the lodges are intimately connected. So you send an invite out for a ladies' night or whatever, and those lodges that have come along to help you out are also chomping at the bit to come along to your socials. So it's all about carrying each other. If your lodge plan should identify a big gap, this is a way to consider moving forward. I'll pause and ask if there are any questions before I go on to the next thing, if only to check that the volume is still there and the sound is still working. And Andrew, I could see your lips moving, but I couldn't.
Yeah, we could definitely see, still hear you. There's no hands up or anything like that.
Oh, good. Okay, okay. So one of the key things that as a lodge under the runway project you will be asked to do will be a lodge profile and a lodge plan. Why will you be asked to do a lodge profile? Well, first of all, if Province are going to be launching a marketing campaign via social media, and they are going to be bringing people in, which breaks the mold of where we normally go, where we have a proposer and a seconder, this person will be unknown to your lodge. And if you haven't got a profile, how can Province assign that person to a lodge that is an appropriate fit? For example, you would not want to assign a 30-year-old to a lodge whose average age group is 85. And to be honest, that lodge probably wouldn't want to receive somebody like that. And the important thing is this can be captured on one sheet of A4. And the rationale behind this is if the province are going to invest their time and your money, because you pay the money to province, in bringing and introducing new candidates to you, it's only fair that in return, they will expect your lodge to have a basic plan in place to retain and develop those people. So if you haven't got a profile, how can province, not knowing your lodge intimately, actually point those people towards them? And if they haven't got the confidence that the time and money they've spent, that you're going to do something to keep them. So there's one reason. If you want to get these candidates coming in, you need some basic plan in place. What do we mean by a lodge profile? It's really not rocket science. What is your age profile? How many? Are you a small lodge? Are you a big lodge? Are you a fine dining club, or are you a burger and chips? Do you go off to Wetherspoons afterwards? Do your members have any special interests? Sport, golf, rugby, craft beer, vintage cars, railway enthusiasts, etc. Give you an example. One of the lodges I'm a member in, almost 2/3 of the members are very keen anglers. And they do 3, if not 4 times a year. They do sea fishing, canal fishing. So if somebody comes and we've asked them the question, what are your outside interests? If you've done the profile and you've got angling or one of those on your list, you're a natural fit to receive that candidate. But you haven't done a profile, province will never know that that's a special thing and a unique thing about your lodge. The place, the day and the time that you meet, really important, because some brethren will say, I can't make Thursday nights because of my work pattern. It's all obvious stuff, but if it's in the profile and province have got it there, and I'm thinking that we can create a database of some kind that will enable us to search, and when we've got a candidate, we can find a natural match for them to make sure they sit in the right place. Don't put a square peg in a round hole. Some people want to join Freemasonry because they love the social side of it. So if your lodge is a lodge that monthly, pre-COVID, regularly held quiz meetings, dining events, music nights, quizzes, whatever it might be, if that's a thing that your lodge is really keen on and you do a lot of, that features in your profile. Maybe your lodge does a lot of work in the community, gets involved with local charity, has an affiliation with some kind with another organization. Again, it's important. And maybe your lodge has something unique. People join Freemasonry because they are fascinated with the history behind Freemasonry. So if your lodge has something of particular historic interest, make sure that appears in your lodge profile. Next part of the plan, and I am not suggesting for 1 minute, brethren, that you do something as complicated as this. In fact, my recommendation is, this is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis. And my suggestion is a maximum 3 points in each of those squares, but I've put these in for examples of the kind of things lodges are considering. What is your lodge strong at now? What is your lodge weak at? What are the opportunities that if only you could stop the guy who says, yeah, but we've tried it before and it doesn't work here. What if you step outside of the box and think, we're given exceptional times, especially given COVID, what are some opportunities that you might be able to investigate? And what are the things that are going to stop you doing that? But I think the important thing, I would never recommend that you do something as busy as this, just 2 or 3 points in each of those squares. And again, this could be a Zoom meeting, but involve all your lodge members. The guys that sit on the back seats have got an input to this, and their input is probably more valuable than the past masters in your lodge, because the reason they're sat on the back seat could be addressed by identifying the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of your lodge. So having done something like this, red, amber, green, and again, under no circumstances keep it as busy as this. 3, 4 points maximum. Red, what are the things that we are doing that are not helping us, that we're perhaps doing because that's the way we've always done it, but they're not actually adding any value, or maybe they're even cheesing people off because that's the way our lodge does it. So if it doesn't add value and it's not essential and it's not in your bylaws and it's not contravening the Book of Constitutions, stop doing it. Don't waste your time doing things because that's the way you've always done it. Then we come to the amber. What are the things that as a lodge you absolutely must continue to do? And again, when you speak across your entire membership, I think you would probably be surprised with what these things are, because they probably aren't the things that you and I would initially think that's what we must continue to do. If you genuinely involve all your lodge membership, so that's the guys that only roll up, that don't roll up for practices and rehearsals, that only sit on the back seats, ask them, because they're the most valuable input that we can have. They could be sitting on the back seats because they do not feel happy with the way you are running your lodge. And then green, the things that we want to do. And I've highlighted there because I think this is such a simple thing. Develop that basic 1 sheet of A4, 5-year basic plan of your officers. Identify problems now while you can and do something about it. Having done that, and again, I'm not one for saying this is a form and you must use it, but this is just an example action plan. You might have identified through your strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, things that you want to do. Get them recorded and shared with your membership. Assign somebody responsible for it. And don't just do it and think it's going to happen. Monitor it and make sure it happens. Get together and review it. If somebody needs assistance and says, this really isn't my skill set, I need some help, it's time for them to cry out and say, I want some help. So that's all I'm going to talk about as regards the lodge plan. And if I emphasize the importance, what's in it for you? 2 things really. One, even though it's obvious, and you probably all know it, when you've got a single sheet that you share with your entire lodge membership, the problems are there for everybody to see and everybody can contribute to a solution. Second thing is, we're going to be in a different way of working post-COVID, and your lodge and chapters are going to be getting candidates proposed that will not come through the traditional route of a proposer and a seconder. And if you haven't got some basic profile and plan in place, then why would Province want to risk all the time and money they've invested in bringing those candidates to you? So before we go on about the podcast, which I'm considering as part of the retention initiative, has anybody got any questions about the planning, the lodge planning, and specifically the runway project? Because I'll happily take questions now. Oh.
No hands up electronically. I'm just scrolling through to see if anybody's waving at me. I can't see any at this point in time.
Right. Okay, that's good. I just like to check, because sometimes when I get silence, I don't know whether it's people have switched off and thought, what am I waffling about, or has the sound dropped? So I'm going to...
No, it's just because everybody's muted, that's all. So
right. Silence implies dissent.
Silence implies dissent,
yeah. So the Robert Lomas podcast initiative. I mentioned on one of the slides earlier that we have got 130 odd, I think, lodges, or 130 odd treasurers are going to be sending emails out before the end of December to all their membership to say, oi, you owe me a couple of £100. And that the guys are going to say, what the hell have I had for my money last year? And what am I going to get next year? And we all hope and pray, April, midsummer, whenever it may be, that we will be in a situation, even if it's restricted, that we can meet again. One of the things we can give these guys for their money right now is podcasts. Dr. Robert Lomas, world-renowned author on everything Masonic. I've got every single one of his books in my bookcase, and I'm privileged as a result of this initiative, by the way, to have monthly calls with the guys, and he's actually coaching me on a book that I'm writing, but that's a bit of a by the way. But this is something that you can demonstrate to your membership, value for money. And the history behind it was middle of March this year, he was due to give a talk within our province. And at that time, great concerns were going over COVID and was it appropriate? So it didn't happen. And Robert went away and thought, well, I've got all these talks that I normally deliver in a tiled lodge. Why don't I make them available as podcasts that can be shared with every subscribing lodge member? And it's all material that would normally be delivered within a tiled lodge. So we need to be careful about the circulation and how we share this. The copyright for the work remains with Robert Lomas, or indeed the podcast author. And there are podcasts, by the way, from the Honourable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons, which is Ladies Freemasons. There are a couple of podcasts there which are quite interesting, Freemasonry from a ladies' perspective. The podcasts are intended to be shared as a simple email attachment. So you don't need to go and download any software. And it's something you listen to at a time that suits you. So a simple attachment in an email. A lot of the younger brethren will download it on their phone. They're in the car by themselves. They'll Bluetooth it with their car radio. And instead of listening to the radio while they're driving about, they will sit in the car and listen to a podcast about Freemasonry. One of the criteria that Robert Lomas has stipulated, after they've been distributed to the lodge, they should either be kept safe. In other words, don't put them on social media. Don't put them on your group websites. Because Robert Lomas is entrusting us with his intellectual property rights on those podcasts. So he doesn't want it out there in the public domain. So we do not share it. There are a total of over 50 podcasts available. And some of them need to be issued in sequence and have specific target audience. And they fall into four main categories: craft, Royal Arch, general Masonic interest, and Masonic heroes. There are also a few on there that are specific to Mark Freemasonry as well. So there are 50 podcasts that fall broadly in those categories. Just to give you an example of what they are, here's some from the first degree. Here's some from the second degree. Some from the third. Some for Royal Arch. Some general Masonic interest stuff. And the Masonic heroes piece. So something for everybody there. And these are not everybody's cup of tea. And when I first launched it, and I'll explain how I launched it within the province and how I hoped it would work in a little while. I think the important thing is, if you go on the provincial website, you will see a list of these podcasts and you will see a synopsis of them. Some of them drag on, and I'll use the phrase drag on for 20 minutes. If you were to send the first podcast out to somebody that dragged on for 20 minutes, I assure you they probably won't bother asking for another one. So for your first few, pick a short and concise one. 7 minutes, something like that. So look at the synopsis, look at what it is about, and decide for yourselves, is it appropriate for your lodge or chapter? How does it work? Well, we do want the agreement of your worshipful master, or if you're a chapter, your principals. There are two ways of getting these podcasts. What I've done is I've had a number of meetings with the group mentors, and the group mentors have access to all of these podcasts. And that's a way of making sure that we don't just fire them from the hip all over the place, that they go out in a coordinated way. So if your lodge is interested, can I suggest in the first instance, please contact your group mentor. If you struggle with your group mentor, or if he can't help you, there is a form on the provincial website that you can register interest in the podcasts. That will come to me, and I will either liaise with your group mentor or I will liaise directly. And if there's anybody on this call that has sent me an email that says, I'm interested in the podcasts and I haven't got back to you, bear in mind what I said at the beginning of the call. The whole reason I'm giving this talk is out of 210 people on last week's call, I got over 240 emails in 6 days. So I can't get to everybody. That's why I tried to create a group structure in delivering these. So how would it work? The intent is that the lodge or chapter secretary, the lodge secretary or chapter scribee will email out to the membership list as an attachment the podcast. The recipient of that listens at a time that suits them. So make a cup of coffee. Instead of listening to the Archers or the shipping forecast, maybe you'd be happy to listen to a podcast. Once that person has listened to it, either delete it or file it away safe. To honour what Robert Lomas is very specific about, do not forward it on to anybody outside your lodge membership. There are brethren probably on this call who are members of lodges in other provinces, and that province might not have bought into this scheme, and they might not know the criteria by which they are entitled to listen to it. So by all means, tell them about it. Do not forward it on outside your own lodge membership. Now, some groups might already be using this, in which case, great, carry on as you are. Some of the podcasts, I've identified complementary provincial specific information that may accompany it. And bear in mind that some of the podcasts do need to be issued in a sequence. So, for example, you might build up first, second, third degree. Recommend a few very short podcasts first, refer to that synopsis, which I've already mentioned. We're reliant here on the secretary that if he's sending out, for example, a podcast that relates specifically to the third degree, don't send it to the entered apprentice and fellowcraft in the lodge, only send it to the master masons. Where can you find more info? Well, this is probably a most useful place on everything to do with pathway, everything to do with lodge planning. There's a whole host of documents there. If I'm honest, probably too many and probably needs fine tuning, but there's a wealth of info there. And you can get a link to this, by the way, via the provincial website. On the provincial website, if you go to the membership section, you can find information on mentoring, you can find information on the podcast initiative. A whole wealth of information is there for you to keep your members engaged. Try and give them some value for money. Try and encourage them to pay their subscriptions when they get that dreaded treasurer's email. There's a whole host of documents again under that membership section, under the mentoring section on the provincial website. There's documentation about members pathway. There's documentation about Solomon. There's documentation and links of other resources that you can go to. Solomon, I'd be very remiss as provincial mentor if I didn't sing the virtues of Solomon. One of the great things about Solomon, and I hated the term nuggets, nuggets are a one-page document about a specific Masonic theme. They make a perfect thing that you could talk about during COVID on a lodge Zoom meeting. Further advancement in Masonic knowledge. There are nuggets on everything from honorary membership, why do we roll our trouser leg up, etc. A whole range of things. So you don't have to have a lodge Zoom meeting and not have some Masonic content on there. And finally, West Lancs electronic welcome pack. I will send out, or time permitting, I'll perhaps share on the chat area a few links that you can go to get further information on what I've talked about. This presentation is free for all to use. You're free to edit it, put your own lodge logo on, put your own group logo on, put your own name on. It's all about proving to the brethren that there are things that we can be doing during a lockdown, and we don't just have to sit there staring at the wall. And I think on that point, I've mentioned the podcasts. Please, as your first port of call, go to your group mentor. If there's any problem and the group mentor can't help you, either come to me or go via the feedback form on the provincial website, which will come to me, and I will make sure that you get sorted. And I think, brethren, I said to Andrew, I wanted 10 or 15 minutes. I'm very conscious I've taken a lot more than that. And I can also see that there's loads of comments there, which I haven't had time to read through. Andrew, I'll hand back to you to field any questions.
Sure, Stuart. Thank you for that. The one of the main questions is that the presentation that you've just done, are you able to circulate that, or is that something that will come from the groups?
Well, let me tell you, what I've talked about is a subset of what myself and Neil Ward, the provincial membership officer, that forms a subset of the briefing that we are giving to all of your group chairmans. And I have no problem, and in fact, I see no reason why I can't share it in the chat area before the end of this call. And you can all go and download what I've just presented to you. And as I say, feel free, put your own lodge logo on, put your name on it, take out bits that you see. So before the end of the call, Andrew, I'll try and get that on as an attachment.
This webinar is obviously being recorded as well, and it will be, I'll edit it tonight and will be available. I'll email it out tomorrow morning, as I did with last week's as well. So people will be able to have your narrative to the document as well. I'm just having another look through the questions. I think it was mainly about wanting to get the slides. It sounds as though some other lodges have already started on this process in terms of looking at it. Chris Taylor has asked if the pathway plans are expected for chapters too. We've discussed this before. Do you want to just touch on it?
I think the intention is yes, even although formally, for example, mentoring is not an integral part of pathway, of members' pathway. The intention is yes, we should try and do it, but obviously the focus right now and the focus of Runway is really on craft. And Andrew, I have just successfully uploaded that PowerPoint presentation. So any of the brethren, if you go into the chat area, there is that PowerPoint presentation that I've just done is yours to go and grab and download.
I'm just looking through. I haven't seen it come up in the chat actually, Stuart. Have you sent it privately to somebody by mistake?
I might have done. I might just have done that.
Don't worry, I do that all the time.
Right, I'm going to do it again.
Question from Mrs. Norton. I don't know which one of you is Mrs. Norton, but the question about where the new membership officer will fit into all of this. The membership officer is being voted on at Grand Lodge at the beginning of December, and that will sit above in terms of rank in the lodge, in terms of seniority in the lodge. It's sitting below charity steward and above mentor, I understand. So that's where it fits into the terms of the lodge seniority. In terms of where it fits into the context of the presentation that we've had today, I think it was very much a case of the mentor and the membership officer working together to complement each other, one on kind of initial introduction and dealing with potential new members, and then feeding them into the mentoring process within the lodge as well. Stuart, you're nodding. Is that how you understand it?
Yeah,
as well?
yes, yeah. And I think the other thing, and it's going slightly away from the point you were making there, Andrew. The one point I do want to emphasise to everybody on this call is, yes, we do need to start work on building a pipeline now for the people we will naturally expect to lose as a result of COVID and everything else. And hopefully I've explained why the hell are we doing that now in the middle of a global pandemic. It takes time, and it will fit in with the provincial strategy, which is all around really kicking in significantly March and April. Equally important is keeping the people that we've currently have on our books, giving them value for money and making sure we retain them. And I've got a number of talks and ideas and things that I am more than happy by invitation to discuss through mentoring, retention, keeping people motivated, things that we can do. I need to be asked. If I'm honest, I prefer to do it at a group level rather than individual lodge level. But if a specific lodge, and Neil Ward and I joined a specific lodge the other week, who had seen this presentation via their group chairman and were seriously struggling with how to get their lodge plan off the ground. So we spent a bit of time with them. They were enthusiastic, they wanted to do it, and we owe it to the lodges to help them where we can and make sure they get it off the ground to the best of their ability.
Neil Ward has just, Neil, do you want to just come in with a comment on the membership officer?
Yeah, the role of the lodge membership officer will become extremely clear once you have the full presentation. Stewart has given you an excellent overview of the whole process this afternoon without digging into each step along the way. Once you dig into the steps, the role of the lodge membership officer will become extremely clear, and we will be offering training either via Zoom or one-to-one on a group basis once things start falling into place. But it will become extremely clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. So I'm just scrolling through to see if there's any questions within that. Anybody waving frantically at me? Frank Parler's got his hand up. Just let me come back to you, Frank. Do you want to unmute? You still there, Frank?
Sorry about that. My iPad wasn't playing games with me properly.
No problem. We can hear you now.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering. Yeah, excellent presentation. Well worth listening to. I'm just wondering, will Stewart be sending this through to have the website updated for the membership pathway page? Because I think it'd be brilliant on that page.
Okay. That's a fantastic idea, and I will get it put forward. It can form part of the resources that I said are already there on the provincial website. So yes, I will get that if you think it's worthwhile.
I do think it's worthwhile, and I take it you have no objection if I share this with another province.
For what I've talked about, no. But if they're going to do anything, where I would have a problem would be if they were to share podcasts with another province. But I have absolutely no problem with you sharing it with another province at all.
No, it won't be podcast. It'll just be the presentation.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. So just to thank you, Stewart. I am sure that if there's any questions that come up, people will be able to email you. And like you said, you got a little bit inundated last week, but
I'm doing something else.
at least people are engaged, then
exactly right.
That's the main thing, and have questions about it. So that's good. I just want to go through a couple of things before we finish for today. Although I will be hanging around to answer any questions if anybody has any. I just want to reiterate what Phil Gunning said earlier in the session, right at the beginning, that it's been identified that there may be some brethren out there with who are developing mental health issues as a result of the current situation, which reiterates the importance of keeping in touch with people that we've talked about at great length on these calls. And I know that kind of by engaging in lodge activities from across the platform, but also simple things like giving somebody a ring, we've talked at, and various kind of methods of telephone trees, or giving to, so where one person phones one person and then they phone another person. And so working your way down a tree, or by giving some phone numbers to each of the officers in the lodge and asking them to contact all the brethren, just to make sure that nobody is forgotten at this point in time. Phil Gunning also highlighted the various different resources and confidential helplines which are available from MCF earlier in the session as well. So I'd direct people to that. And you should be receiving your new yearbook if you haven't received it all yet ready. Some of them which have been sent by DHL, the couriers DPD have received them. The ones which have been sent by Royal Mail, I think, are perhaps a day or so behind. So you should be receiving yours in the next couple of days, that's for sure. I know that some people have had them. And in that you'll find 3 fact sheets. One of them is on prostate cancer, one of them is on mental health, and the other one is on loneliness as well. And those are obviously kind of very key issues at this point in time. Got a note from Neil Ward that just to remind people, there are some groups that haven't booked for Stewart and Neil to go and talk to them yet. I'm sure that will be picked up with the group executives, Neil. And perhaps if you want them chivying up a little bit, you can let me know, and I'll just pass your comment on to the group chairman for it. So, in terms of the mental health side of things, please have a look at the MCF website. There are some very good resources on that, and we'll look at doing something about it, spotting things as they come up, and how to deal with spotting where there may be problems developing. We'll look at doing something like that, but it is covered well in the fact sheets anyway. So that's what's coming on. Just a note for what we've got coming up over the next couple of weeks. Just waiting for a few things to fall into line a little bit. Christine Chapman is hopefully going to be coming to talk to us about women's Freemasonry. She's the Grand Master of the Honourable and Ancient Fraternity, which Honourable and Ancient Fraternity, yeah. That's the one of the branches of women's Freemasonry. We're also going to hopefully have Gareth Jones coming to us. I also have to think twice whether it's Gareth Jones or Simon Jones. I know one of them's a cricketer and the other's the third Grand Principal, so it's one of the two. I think Gareth Jones is coming to talk to us on new and young Masons clubs. And also I was speaking earlier to Mike Beasley about doing something regarding other orders as well, other Masonic orders, the progressive orders, and looking at Rose Croix and Knights Templar in particular for those. So that's coming up over the next couple of weeks. The order in which they happen has yet to kind of fall into place, but there's certainly going to be some interesting stuff which comes up over the next couple of weeks. If there are any questions or comments on that, I'm happy to go through them. But if there's nothing specific to today's session, then we'll see. I see, Joe, you've got your hand up. Hang on, just come to you. You should be asked to unmute yourself.
Right, thank you, Andrew. That was really interesting, Stewart, the talk. Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for that. There's another thing, what Phil Gunning was saying. Phil Preston actually put this round on the first week of the COVID crisis with my telephone number, saying that people can phone me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was a crisis the week before. Unfortunately, a young girl had taken her own life, and that's what prompted me to say, we can't have any more of this kind of thing. She's a local girl, but Bill Preston sent an email around everyone to say that anyone can phone me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime at all. And also, he did put in my daughter's telephone number. She knows a lot about autistic children. I've got an autistic grandchild myself, one of her children, and also autistic people, you know, who seem to, they do get lonely. They have a certain way of going on. They like things done in a certain manner, and she's somebody to talk to as well. And it's, like I say, it's just to say that we are available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and my telephone number can be given out to anyone. In the first week, we had 19 calls, believe it or not, and in the second week there was 23 calls from different lodges, and the local area as well. Because we do a lot in the community and for St Mary's Hospice. So it's well worth doing.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Smedley.
Hi, Andrew. A quick question for you regarding exclusion under Rule 181. Obviously, we're in suspension, so no summonses and anything. Now,
sure.
The private and confidential letter has to go out no less than 14 days before, with all the bits and pieces, stating the time and place appointed for the meeting at which it will be considered.
Yeah.
Would I be within my sort of secretarial rights to send such a letter saying that this matter would be considered at the next regular meeting, or would I have to sort of wait until there was a regular meeting that I can refer to? I'm just trying.
So when you get your United Grand Lodge annual return,
yeah.
You mark on that, you indicate on that brother is pending 181, pending Rule 181, and you will take that ballot at the first regular meeting that you are able to do so. So before that meeting is when you should send out the documents.
Right. Okay.
For it.
We have had our year end and our installation. However, at the installation, which was our first meeting for a good while, we did update our bylaws such that the exclusion period is 3 months. And that will be the 1st of December. So what I'm trying to do is encourage people to pay up when they should do. Right. There's no problem in incurring any penalties to the United Grand Lodge by going over year end. I was just trying to sort of apply a little sort of gentle persuasion by sending a letter out. I wondered whether I could or whether I shouldn't.
Well, there's nothing wrong with keeping in touch with people and asking them to, consider it. When you come up to if you are able to meet, when and if you are able to meet, you can send them the official documentation then. It sounds as though you're going to be within your year end anyway, so it's not necessarily going to be a particular issue.
Okay, thanks so much indeed for your help.
Kevin, I'm coming to you.
Am I on?
Yep, you are.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Question or comment towards directed towards Stewart. Earlier on, I put on across the messages that probably for every one person that we know that's suffering from some sort of strain, either mentally or psychologically, there's probably another one or two that we don't know about. So it's very likely that now is the time that we accelerate the retention bit of the pathway to make absolutely sure that A, we're in touch with these people, B, we know that they know how valuable they are to Freemasonry, and at the same time, it'll make them, if we can keep them on board and make them feel valued, they will continue to pay the fees and stay into Masonry, because the benefits of staying in Masonry, far outweigh the benefits of staying out of Masonry, because we know of people that are lapsed Masons and have had some trouble obtaining help from the Masonic charities. But staying as a Freemason makes sure that they and their families are also included within that wider circle. So it's important that we accelerate the retention bit now, as I've been unfortunately banging on about for the past 4 months. And I've been told that it's a lodge problem and it's this problem and it's every other problem but our problem. It's important that we do it now and start the ball rolling now to make sure that these brethren feel valued in Masonry and they know that we're going to look after them.
Thanks,
Kevin, if I can answer that in a couple of ways. First of all, I'm very privileged to represent the province on the Pathways Working Party. And one of the things I've said to the guys is, look, we've got these 11 steps and we're looking at consolidating them, but our focus has got to be exactly what you just said. Look after the people now. Yes, we've still got the recruitment stuff that we need to do, but that should take a backseat. More importantly, think out of the box for the ridiculous and unbelievable situation we're all in now and adjust it for the COVID situation that we're in, and make it very specific so that when people start reading documents or they see a slideshow or they click a link and watch a video, they relate to it. That's where I am now at this place in time. And I'm on, I think the next Pathway Working Party is probably next week. And I am going to be banging my big drum about the focus has absolutely got to be looking after people now, making things interesting for them, making sure we address things that appeal to them in the circumstances that we're in, and not generic crap. Generic crap's no good for anybody. It's got to be something really specific for the unique situation we find ourselves in. And while I've got the stage, Andrew, if I may say, a lot of people have said about keeping in contact with people. Can I say a very important thing that I think we are probably all negligent of? We might ring a brother to ask how they are, and his partner or wife answers the phone. And I bet 9 out of 10 of us say, is he there? Instead of saying, hello, Michelle, how are you doing? Because their partners are in this as well as us. And if we're not careful, so Freemasons don't give a damn about the family. They only want to speak to you. So take time, if their partner, wife, whoever answers the phone, make sure you've got their, to me, when I do a contact list for lodges and chapters, one of the most important things on there is their partner's name, so that if they answer the phone, I can have a chat with them and ask, how are they doing? And I think that's really, really important, because if you disenfranchise their partners, then they've lost the support from their family. They've got nothing to see in Freemasonry anymore. Why the hell would they renew their subs? Their wife's against Freemasonry. They're getting nothing for their money. We've got to attack this from all angles and think out the box a little bit, I think, is the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you, Stuart. Got a question from Jean Ellis.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right, good afternoon. My name's Jim Ellis. I'm Master of Foxhall 7484. I'd just like to thank you for this Zoom and inform you that this is the first successful pickup that I've had on this Zoom meeting, because I get tied up on it, something chronic. I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you for allowing me to participate in the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you. Terry.
Hello. I'd just like to touch on something that Phil said right at the start about prostate cancer. Having had it myself and gone through the process, a few little bits and pieces that people may not realise is that one, it is the most overtreated problem or condition that there is within the NHS. It's nothing to be frightened of. If you catch it soon enough, or early enough, or the earlier you catch it, the better. But the people to actually talk to about it, if you are in any doubt whatsoever, the Macmillan people, they have some excellent counsellors, and they will take you through each step of the way as to what to actually do. They'll give you several options, how you want to proceed, and they will guide you through those options with a great deal of aplomb and sensitivity. I elected to have my prostate removed by robot. The surgeon was sat about 25 feet away from me when he took it out. I wasn't aware of that at the time. I knew it was going to be done, but I woke up and I hadn't got a prostate. As I say, catch it early. If anyone has any symptoms at all, such as having a problem peeing or whatever, get checked out. Certainly take advantage when the Grand Lodge opens up again. Take advantage of the tests, because the earlier you get it, the easier it is to treat if it needs it. That's really what I wanted to say. It's not.
Thank you.
It's not something that's like the sort of Damocles hanging over your head. It's not going to kill you. It has been said that it's something you die with rather than of. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right, Chris Taylor.
I just wanted to back that up. Thank you. I've not, thankfully, had prostate cancer, but by sheer luck, I'm a big fan of Radio 4, particularly comedy. There's been a series just been on called Prostrate, deliberately misspelt, and it's Stephen Tompkinson and Gary Wilmot, if you remember them, and it's just 5 15-minute episodes of a guy going through, being given his diagnosis, all the way through to deciding on what kind of treatment. It's done in a really light-hearted way, and it actually talks about I hadn't realized how many options you have for treatment and palliative care and all kinds of stuff that go with it. And it's just a really light-hearted program, easy to listen to, and it's on BBC Sounds, what used to be called iPlayer, and it's called Prostrate. I'd suggest anybody listens to it, and I've been banging the drum with all my mates recently. Just wanted to make you aware of it.
Thank you, Chris, and it's nice to hear you sounding so well as well after your issues. Right, there's no more hands up. I'm just looking through to anybody waving at me. Doesn't appear to be any. Stewart, thank you very much again for today. Once again, we'll if you can forward me that presentation so I can include it with the video of this session, which will be going out tomorrow. That would be great. Chris from Anfield Lodge. Yes, by all means, if you want to email me, I can send it to you. Other than that, thank you very much for being here. Like I said, we've got a few things coming up over the next few weeks, but I'm just not quite sure how exactly they're going to fall. It may be the case that we look at doing something on general well-being and health in general, which sounds as though it may be worthwhile looking at both kind of mental health and also physical health, and how people could be looking out for each other in those directions as well. So may look at getting a few people in on that. So other than that, I shall see you all next week, same time next week, usual time, 3 p.m. On this space. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Very good.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Phil. Oh, you came back.
Yeah, I came back. I had to speak to the chief about something, so I came back. Came out there. One of the things that we need to impress on people, this is not necessarily just for scribes and secretaries, it's for everybody in the province.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So, if, I mean, I get it sent, obviously, but got to make sure that secretaries are passing things on.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Stuart, is it the same link tonight?
I'll email it to you, Neil, if I haven't already.
Thank you.
We're just going to say, Phil, all that information you were handing out, which is good. It's coming the Better Lives.
Yeah, I've not got mine.
It arrived today for me, actually, and some people got it yesterday.
Right. No, I've not got mine yet.
But it's all here. A lot of it's, well, everything you were talking about is in here in the little booklet.
Yeah, but yeah, that's it. That's the one. Yeah, I have to get mine from provincial office. But yeah, it's important that we have seen an increase, sadly.
And the other thing I'd like to comment on was what Stewart said, which is very worthwhile information. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Worthwhile information was getting the wives' names, because I, for one, I know some of them. I don't know them all, I must admit. And as you say, it's mostly I'm the almoner. I deal with a lot of the widows, and yeah, some of the older brothers as well that are too old to go to the lodge. Actually, they're in the 90s, you know, late 80s, 90s. So it's nice to have their wives' names as well. Quite rightly, what you say, if they answer the phone, you can have a chat to them, and they feel part of it. You're 100% right.
Mm. Well, in the old days, the old secretaries always used to send out the phone list with the wives' names on it.
I was just about to say that, Phil. That's what we do in Onward.
Yeah, that was the standard practice. That
you've got it on the end of the sheet, so you've got the brothers' information, and then at the end it's.
You never used to let your wife see it if there was a Carol or an Ann, because they always used to miss off the E on the end. My wife's Ann, and she always Ann with an E, and I'd always get it. I get it in the ear. Spelt my name wrong again.
Yeah.
I must have a word with our secretary to make sure he's got him. I don't. Yeah. I've got the widows' names and whatnot, and a list of the brothers, but I don't have a list of all the wives' names.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shall endeavour to do that.
No, it's a good point, John. It's a very good point. It's a very good point Stuart made, to be honest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I always say, how you do. If I can't remember the name, it's how you doing, love. That always works.
It works most of the time, but it's nice to put a name to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right, on that, I better go and feed this dog. Anyway, lovely presentation.
Are you talking about your wife? Is that
no. Unfortunately, Andrew, my poor wife passed away 8 years ago.
Oh dear.
I forgive you on that one.
All right, thank you very much. It's not awkward now at all.
Yeah, and she also passed away. Also passed away on my birthday as well. Believe it or not.
Dear.
A double whammy. Yeah, that's the way life is.
It is
indeed.
This is one of the things actually. While we're on about that, a lot of people. We've got one of our ex-WMs. His wife's just passed away 2 days ago. A lot of people are not able to approach and like, you know, Almers maybe. I don't know. I'm pretty all right with it. how do you approach people that has just lost somebody? You know, maybe we should be looking at giving someone some guidance on that if they need it.
I think, John, it matters. It matters on the individual, and I think we're all different, and we all handle grief differently. I lost my son 17 years ago now, and you handle grief differently. They say you should never bury a child, but unfortunately I had to. But you handle it different, and I was quite open. I've always been open about things like that, because talking actually is good for people. And I was quite open.
What I'm saying, Phil, I understand your side, what you're saying to me about your side of it. I'm on about someone that's like the almoners got to go and see them or speak to them.
Yeah.
Some people don't know what to say.
I think there are indicators, John. When you know, if you know the person concerned, you'll always have an impression of what they like a little bit, and whether they're open, whether they're closed. If it's a closed book, you know, you're on a hiding to nothing. If it's an open book, you can talk to an open book.
I'd point you in the direction of the Almoners, John. I'd point you in the direction of the Almoners Handbook. I know exactly where you're coming from in terms of these are difficult conversations to get into and out of, and they can make you feel very uncomfortable when you're having them. I absolutely get that. There are some very good kind of conversation starter bits and pieces in the Almoners Handbook, which is available on the MCF, which I think is exactly what you're looking for in terms of guiding people how to handle and manage these conversations, but also how to start them off in the first place and get comfortable with it. It's not something which comes naturally to, well, anybody, I would imagine. But there are some tips there as well in terms of how to handle, you know, really, you know, tragic conversations which you may need to.
Yeah, I think, Andrew, it's somewhere down the line that we should try and address that. I must admit, I don't find it a problem. I'll tell you why. Maybe for one reason or another, because I'm Irish and I was brought up with it. A lot of people are not brought up with bereavement. I mean, I don't know how many people, family and friends that I've seen passed away and whatnot. It's just something that I know for a fact. When I was working up in Scotland, and I wasn't even in the lodge then, a colleague of ours, his daughter got killed, 23, in a car accident. Right on, I think it was Boxing Day, got killed, and everybody sort of shun away from him. Oh, don't know what to say, don't know what to do, and we had a bit of a function somewhere. There was a function on anyway, and him and his wife were sitting there. And to be honest with you, it was only me that went over and said to him, "How are you doing?" And he thanked me for going over to say hello. Nobody else had bothered to go near him. And I think it's because they don't know what to say. They don't know what to,
I think you can have that conversation. You can. It's all right to say you don't know what to say. I think that is, you know, saying something is better than avoiding the conversation the first time.
But it's also a two-way street. And when I actually went to speak to people when Philip passed away, and I think, as I say, we're all different. We handle grief differently. We handle circumstances differently. We handle life differently. We don't always get it right. There again, we don't always get it wrong.
Yeah.
So it's such a mixed bag. But
Right.
I think if you look at people or know people, then invariably you know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
That was my opinion anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, you know, don't let perfect be the enemy of action.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get everything perfect first time.
No, you're not.
Just Tony Tate. You had your hand up before. Do you want to?
Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, I was just thinking how backwards some people are. I was an almoner of my lodge for 20 years, and one of the first things I did was made sure I knew the partners' names.
Mm.
And I was very lucky in a way, because my wife is a former ward sister, so she is this. If I wasn't in, she was always available to ask questions and answer questions, you know. And I think it does involve to involve. It's a lot easier to, as to talking about people who have lost somebody. If you're in regular contact with them, it makes it easier to talk to them as well.
Mm.
And it's not the easiest thing in the world to talk to somebody who's just lost somebody. But if you know the person and you're in contact with them on a regular basis, it is easier to talk to them.
That's okay, Tony. That's fine, Tony. If you're normally in contact with the husband if he's in the lodge, but not necessarily in a general contact with his wife or partner.
Well, we used to. Well, I don't know. When we make sure that we know the husband's wife's name, you know, and as Phil was saying, I think it was Phil that said, if you're on the phone to and the wife answers, if you know their name, you can talk to them and ask them how they are.
Yeah, that was Stewart. That was a very good piece of advice that from Stewart.
I was doing that 20 years ago. And when we send cards out, when we used to send Easter cards out and birthday cards and Christmas cards, we always used to include the husband and the wife by name. You know,
it's a good bit of advice, Tony and Stewart. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to feed this dog before he chews the leg off of me.
Right, you do.
I'm going to feed my little lass too.
All right.
Thanks,
take
Phil.
care.
Bye, everybody. God
Thanks,
bless
John.
everybody.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good.
God bless.
And I.
Cheers, Stuart.
Right.
Cheers, Stuart.
Cheers,
Thanks for everything, Stuart.
Andrew, I'll send you that presentation and you can.
Yes, please do.
A few people have said they seem to have had problems downloading it from the chat area, so there's obviously something slightly amiss there.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers, Stuart. Thank you.
See you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.